Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and my one fan in the back row there. You know, I want to start by saying thank you to Mark McLaughlin, my Deputy Minister, Tessa Ritter, my Chief of Staff, and Wendy Ward, my CA. I think together we make a pretty good team, and I know they're watching with bated breath in front of their TVs tonight, partly because they have no life being on my team. You know, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, there are 49 of us on this side of the Assembly, and in my short time of having the privilege of serving in these august halls, we've really been through a lot. Since I was elected in April of 2016, we have buried 2 of our members unexpectedly. We said goodbye and hello to 4 members, which also, of course, means we've been through 4 by-elections, soon to be 5. 2 members have been battling cancer. 1 member has had a son who is critically injured. We've gone through a vigorous 5-month leadership campaign with 6 candidates, 2 women, 1 Aboriginal person, and 3 men. Of course, we've said goodbye to Brad Wall, whose brand will forever be imprinted on this party, and we've embraced the leadership of Premier Scott Moe, who's already making his mark. And we've been faced with the horrible tragedy as a result of the Humboldt Broncos bus crash. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as a mom who literally rushes out the door from here to get supper on the table and kids to sports, often coming back late at night to work, and sometimes catching one of my kids' games in between things, the tragedy over the Broncos is really close to home. There are a few things I love watching more than watching my kids compete. I'm very mindful, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that I still have the privilege of doing these things, while other families do not. And my heart goes out to them. A 16-year-old should never be a pallbearer for another 16-year-old friend, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The trajectory there is just so wrong. All of this would have fractured even the strongest party, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but I've come to know that I'm truly surrounded by some incredible people. Members of the public, unfortunately, only get a very small glimpse of the depth of character and talent that we have on these benches, and I really want them to know about it. I'm constantly inspired by the member from Martinsville, the member from Meadow Lake, and the member from Indian Head, all of whom are astute political minds. I am always in awe of the steadfast commitment and pride in their constituency that the member from the Battlefords, the member from Cutknife Turtleford, the member from Melville Saltcoats, and the member from Regina Pasqua have. The member from Saskatchewan Rivers, the member from Saskatoon Westview, the member from Moose Jaw Waccamaw, and the member from Yorkton hold our heartbeat, Mr. Deputy Speaker, along with the Speaker. The member from Saskatoon Stonebridge is one of the most eloquent speakers in our benches, although may have some competition from the new member from Swift Current. And our finance minister, by far, is the most fearless. I admire the historical memory of the member from Cannington and the steadiness in everything they do from the members from Rosetown, Saskatoon Northeast, and Lumsden Morse. The member from Saskatoon Willow Grove is an incredible organizer, while the member from Prince Albert Carleton is a gentleman in the most true sense of the word. The member from Weyburn Big Muddy is one of our sharpest minds, while the member from Mooseman is our global citizen. The members from Estevan and Lloydminster nurture us. I want to point these things out, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because I count myself as privileged to be a part of a great team. I have the fortune in this life of never having done a job I hated. I've always really enjoyed my work, and this place is no exception, but it is, I think, extraordinary. Not only have I aspired to adopt many of the incredible gifts my colleagues in this place have, but I've also never laughed so much. There is a sign in my office upstairs that says, if you're not having fun, you're on the wrong team. Politics is very rewarding, but can also be very tough sometimes, and given all we've gone through as a party, I want to especially thank the humour and good grace of the member from Wood River, who always has a smile. Now he's not even paying attention, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The pranks from the member of Saskatoon Southeast, and of course my seatmate, the member from Saskatoon Sutherland. You make coming to work every day even better, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
With such a large number of members, I know I haven't gotten to everyone. I only have so much time, and I want to get to the budget. But every single person here contributes something special to this team, and that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is why it works. And as I've been thinking about this, I've realized that what makes our Premier special is that he embodies, I think, all of these things: compassion and empathy, political acumen, policy intellect, passion, and a good sense of humour. I think of him as not only a leader and a mentor, but as a friend, and I'm really excited to be a part of this next chapter under his leadership, because we're going to do great things in Saskatchewan. Now on to the issue at hand, Mr. Deputy Speaker. You know, it's interesting. Last year, in my reply to the budget speech, I pointed out the fundamental inconsistencies in the opposition's critique of the budget. Those logical inconsistencies were that they simultaneously criticized debt, deficit, and investment in people. Last year, I asked, which is it? And here we are again this year. The opposition critics said, and I quote, "There is no plan in this budget. This government needed to make wise investments in Saskatchewan people to get our province back on track," end quote. And then moments later, talks about debt and deficit levels. I don't know how anyone is supposed to take them seriously when their ability to construct a cohesive and very elementary economic argument is so obviously constrained. I am confident that our government is on track to delivering on our 3-year plan to get back to balance, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but it seems that the opposition is also on track to staying in opposition. I could go on at length, Mr. Deputy Speaker, about investments in vulnerable people in this budget. The same targeted investments that have been criticized by the NDP for not doing enough. As my colleague, the Minister of Health, pointed out, many of the targeted investments we are making are precisely to help people avoid falling through the cracks. Investments into HIV, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is one of those. But near and dear to me are the investments in kids that help prevent them from coming into our child welfare system. These include supports for autism and, as the Minister of Health pointed out in his speech, investments in early screening and hearing detection for newborns. I would add that the investments this government has made into those who suffer from full or partial vision loss and the range of disability supports in general, Mr. Deputy Speaker, are thoughtfully delivered to ensure a strong quality of life in this province for some of our most vulnerable people. On advanced education, the member from Saskatoon-Nutana said, and I quote, "There's little hope offered in this budget for post-secondary students in Saskatchewan as well," end quote. As I will shortly lay out, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to differ. And perhaps the most egregious comments are these, and I quote, "We also looked for and didn't find any inspiration in this budget, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Inspiration for entrepreneurship, inspiration for bright young minds. The addition of so-called incentives in areas like value-added agriculture and for startup businesses are all good and fine, Mr. Deputy Speaker." She then goes on with this, and I quote, "The government had an opportunity to inspire today's next generation of inventors and entrepreneurs, but they've missed it." Now, what they did include, Mr. Deputy Speaker, which perhaps speak to this government's notion of inspiration, but I would venture no one else's, are confusing, ill-conceived, and overly complex new programs which will impact a very limited number of applicants. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think the growing and young tech community in our province would be very interested to know that this is the NDP's view. I think the many, many young people who I talk to that don't want to punch a clock in their future but want to be masters of their own destiny and become entrepreneurs would be very, very interested in the NDP's view. And I think our existing entrepreneurial community would also be very interested in knowing that this is their view. Saskatoon, the opposition critics' home city, is the second fastest growing tech hub in Canada outside the Kitchener-Waterloo area. This means our province is uniquely positioned in Western Canada, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And we are a major exporter of resources, resources that the world wants. So if you take the combination of the STSI and the Saskatchewan Value-Added Agricultural Incentive, we have a potent combination. The kind of potent combination that produces the kind of work that AgWest Bio is doing, or Trent at Seedmaster is doing with autonomous tractors. You see, just because the NDP doesn't understand a growth incentive like the Saskatchewan Tech Startup Incentive doesn't mean it is, and I quote, no one else's inspiration, end quote. And to go on to refer to it as ill-conceived flies in the face of the many, many entrepreneurs through the leadership of Collabs and SAS Tech who pushed hard for this. There really is nothing complex or ill-conceived about the STSI, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is pretty straightforward, in fact. We're providing a 45% tax incentive, which is designed to address the shortage of capital for early-stage startups. Of importance, eligible startups must be in Saskatchewan, and half their employees need to be located in the province. It is a 2-year pilot using funds we already have in Innovation Saskatchewan. This helps us create an important pathway, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and it is a pathway towards further economic diversification, innovation, and growth. That pathway is actually well paved through a number of significant and thoughtful policy choices we have made. We start with the introduction of coding in the K-12 curriculum. Then in the post-secondary sector, we expand computer science seats and spur an entrepreneurial research culture by leveraging the Saskatchewan Advantage innovation funding that we have. 20 projects, Mr. Deputy Speaker, have been funded through this program, which have in turn attracted $27 million in private investment, almost $2 million in federal investment, and just over $8 million of our own investment. The total return on investment on the basis of the funds that we've leveraged, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is 258%. 258%. Then we have the patent box legislation, which helps our research community patent and commercialize the products of their work to help build the knowledge economy. And now we also have the STSI, which helps early-stage startups access capital right here at home. You see, Saskatchewan was the only jurisdiction that didn't have a startup incentive like this, and so we lost, and we're at risk of losing, more young people who simply pursued their entrepreneurial dreams elsewhere because accessing angel investment was more attractive elsewhere. We've changed that because we want our young people to grow and thrive right here, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The member opposite from Saskatoon-Riversdale argued in her speech that we've ignored female entrepreneurs, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Well, about a third of the entrepreneurs in this province are female. 7 of the 37 companies that have gone through the Collabs incubator have had female founders. Contango Strategies, one of those initiatives that we have funded through the Saskatchewan Advantage Fund for Innovation, is led by 2 female founders who do the important work of using technological applications to help clean up water at mine sites and around the world. And let's take it a step further to include RoboU, a program which is introducing robotics and coding to First Nations students on 2 reserves here in the province of Saskatchewan so that those students can be part of the 3rd wave of technology opportunities in this province. There's no doubt we have more work to do, but these are moves in the right direction, and we're going to keep going. If that is not trusting to provide hope and inspiration, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I don't know what is. And it's just one more example of the lack of serious, thoughtful reflection on behalf of the members opposite. You can't just shoot randomly at everything in sight, hoping you'll hit a target if you want to be considered the government in waiting, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Our investment into this particular pathway around technology and growing our entrepreneurial ecosystem, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is inspiring and exciting. We are living in an age where our use of the digital world means we're contributing to data, the accumulation of data in real time. Every single time we like a post, conduct a search, share a photo, or make an online purchase, we're contributing to a data profile. Our kids are going to have a lifetime of this, and it'll allow for longitudinal research, the likes of which we've never, ever before seen. Now, There are certain risks to privacy associated with this, as we're seeing in the United States, but there are also great opportunities for us to harness both macro and micro data in real time in order to make better decisions as a government about the interventions that actually work to help people and grow our economy, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This is work that we're undertaking right now in the government under the leadership of Dale McPhee. As a global exporter, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the internet can literally become a shared language. Right now, I could travel anywhere in the world and converse, because I can type a phrase into Google Translate on my phone, which could spit that phrase out in 90 languages as fast as any connection speed will allow, which is all part of the growth of voice-based virtual assistants. The growth of mobile apps alone, Mr. Deputy Speaker, has been phenomenal. There are billions of smartphone users in the world, and on average, each of these has 28 to 32 apps on their phone. Those apps have been created by computer coders, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The growth in as-a-service business models like locally owned Best Food Forward or Local and Fresh enable local food subscription services that effectively build an end-to-end supply chain, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And there is, despite the opposition critics' charge that we have nothing on renewables and sustainabilities, a lot of entrepreneurial movement in the circular economy. Just look at the work that Saskatchewan-based Clean Farms is doing around grain bag recycling, work that has been made possible in part by funding from the Ministry of Agriculture, or about the very exciting opportunities to collaborate and innovate that the protein supercluster will bring. I am so very proud to be part of a party on this side of the Assembly who has a very thoughtful plan on how to manage our economy and continue to grow for the next generation of Saskatchewan citizens. We aren't going to just lead, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we're going to thrive, and I'm really excited to play my part in it. And for all of these reasons, I am very proud to support this budget and the work of our extraordinary Finance Minister and her team, and I will not be supporting the amendment. Thank you.